What if Anakin killed Palpatine instead of Mace Windu? Let's explore the depths of this scenario in the video. The office of the Supreme Chancellor lies in ruins. Shattered, transparent steel crunches underfoot as crimson lightning still crackles along the walls, leaving scorch marks that will never fully fade. The massive desk that once symbolized the power of the Galactic Republic lies split in half. Its ornate Naboo wood carved with laser precision by a lightsaber that moved too fast for the human eye to follow. Books, artifacts, and political documents are scattered across the floor like the remnants of a civilization, which in many ways they are. Chancellor Palpatine, the man who has led the Republic through its darkest hour, lies flat on his back against the curved wall of his office. But this is not the kindly grandfather figure that the Senate knows and loves. His face is pale and gaunt, his eyes burning with an unnatural yellow fire that seems to consume light rather than reflect it. His carefully maintained facade has cracked completely, revealing the ancient evil that has been hiding beneath senatorial robes for over a decade. Standing over him, breathing heavily from their duel, Master Mace Windu holds his purple lightsaber steady. The weapon's unique amethyst blade hums with barely contained energy, its tip hovering mere centimeters from Palpatine's throat. Mace's face is a mask of grim determination, but behind his eyes burns a fury that few have ever seen from the usually composed Jedi Master. His Vapid fighting style has fed off the dark side energy in this room, and he can feel it calling to him, whispering that one quick thrust would end this nightmare forever. "You're under arrest, Chancellor," Mace says, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "The Senate will decide your fate." Palpatine's lips curl into a sneer that transforms his grandfatherly features into something utterly alien. "I am the Senate," he hisses, his voice carrying an undertone that seems to reverberate through the Force itself. "And you, Master Windu, are under arrest for treason against the Republic. The Republic you've been manipulating for years," Mace replies, not moving his blade even a millimeter. "How long have you been planning this? How long have you been playing both sides against each other while good people died for your ambition?" "Longer than you can imagine," Palpatine says. And, for a moment, his mask slips entirely. "I have been every crisis, every war, every disaster that has befallen this galaxy for the past 30 years. I am the Hand of Mortis, the architect of destiny itself. And you, Jedi, are nothing but pieces on a game board. You're too primitive to comprehend." The sound of running footsteps echoes in the corridor outside. Both men tense, knowing that this moment of truth cannot last much longer. Either reinforcements will arrive, or this confrontation will end one way or another. The future of the galaxy hangs in the balance, teetering on the edge of a knife that could fall either direction. Then the doors burst open, and Anakin Skywalker charges into the room. But this is not the Anakin from our timeline. This version has spent the long minutes since leaving the council chambers in deep contemplation, not wild panic. Instead of racing through the halls of the Senate building consumed by fear for Padme's life, he has been walking, thinking, remembering. The pieces of a puzzle that has been building for years have finally begun to click into place in his mind. He remembers Palpatine's too convenient presence during every major crisis in his life. The way the Chancellor always seemed to know exactly what to say to fuel Anakin's doubts about the Jedi Council. The subtle questions about his relationship with Padme, probing for weaknesses that could be exploited. Most damning of all, the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise, told with the kind of intimate detail that could only come from personal experience. Anakin's blue lightsaber is already ignited as he enters the room, but he doesn't immediately rush to either combatant's aid. Instead, he stops in the doorway, his eyes moving between Mace Windu and the fallen Chancellor, seeing both men clearly for perhaps the first time in his life. "Anakin!" Palpatine calls out, his voice suddenly shifting back to the warm, paternal tone that has guided Skywalker for years. "Thank the Force you're here! Master Windu has lost his mind!" "He's trying to kill me. I told you to wait in the council chambers," Mace says sharply, not taking his eyes off Palpatine. "This is too dangerous." "I couldn't just sit there," Anakin replies, but his voice lacks the desperate edge it carried in the original timeline. "Something felt wrong. The Force was screaming at me to come here." Palpatine's yellow eyes fix on Anakin with laser intensity. This is the moment everything has been building toward. 3 years of careful manipulation, of positioning himself as the young Jedi's closest confidant and advisor. Every conversation, every piece of advice, every small kindness has been designed to create a bond that will now prove unbreakable. "Anakin, my boy," Palpatine says, his voice taking on the desperate edge of a grandfather pleading with his favorite grandchild. "You know me. You've known me since you were 9 years old. I've watched you grow from a slave child into the greatest Jedi of your generation. Would I lie to you? Would I ever do anything to hurt you?" For a moment, the room is silent, except for the hum of lightsabers and the distant sounds of Coruscant traffic. Anakin's expression is unreadable, his Force presence carefully controlled in a way that surprises both older men. This is not the impulsive young knight they thought they knew. "You're right, Chancellor," Anakin says slowly. "You have known me for a long time. You've been there for every major moment in my life." He takes a step closer, and Palpatine's face brightens with hope. "You were there when I was made a Padawan. You were there when I married Padme in secret. You were there when I slaughtered the Sand People who killed my mother." Mace's eyebrows rise slightly at this confession, but he remains focused on Palpatine. "Yes," Palpatine says eagerly. "I've always been there for you, Anakin. When the Jedi Council doubted you, when they held you back, when they denied you the rank you deserved, I believed in you when no one else would. And yesterday," Anakin continues, his voice growing harder, "you told me the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise, a Sith Lord who could manipulate the Force to create life and prevent death. You told me this story when I confided in you about my nightmares of Padme dying." Palpatine's smile falters slightly. "I was trying to help you understand that there are powers in this universe that the Jedi have forgotten or forbidden, powers that could save the woman you love." "How do you know that story?" Anakin asks, and now his lightsaber is moving into an attack position. How does a politician from Naboo know intimate details about an ancient Sith Lord that isn't even in the Jedi archives? The silence that follows is deafening. Palpatine's mind races, trying to find an explanation that won't immediately expose him. But he can see in Anakin's eyes that the young man has already connected the dots. The tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise is not a story the Jedi would tell you. Anakin quotes, his voice taking on a mocking edge. That's what you said. But how would you know what stories the Jedi would or wouldn't tell unless you knew stories they didn't want told? Mace feels a surge of pride in his fellow Jedi. The young man's deductive reasoning is impressive. And more importantly, he's seeing through decades of manipulation with startling clarity. Anakin, Palpatine says, dropping all pretense of warmth from his voice, you're being naive. The Jedi have lied to you your entire life. They've held you back, denied you the recognition you deserve, forbidden you from loving the woman who means everything to you. I offered you power to save her life, and you question my motives. I question everything now. Anakin replies, I question why you always seem to know exactly what to say to make me doubt the Jedi. I question why every conversation we've had has been designed to isolate me from my friends and teachers. I question why you told me I was the chosen one when that's not your place to say. Because you are the chosen one, Palpatine snarls, his facade cracking further. You're destined for greatness beyond anything these foolish Jedi can comprehend, but only if you embrace your true potential. My true potential, Anakin repeats thoughtfully. Let me guess. My true potential involves serving you, following your guidance, becoming your apprentice. The word apprentice hangs in the air like a physical presence. Mace's grip tightens on his lightsaber as the implications become clear. Always two there are. Anakin continues, quoting Yoda's words about the Sith. A master and an apprentice. You're not just a politician who knows Sith stories, are you? You're the master. You're the Sith Lord. We've been hunting for 3 years. Palpatine realizes that his careful manipulation has failed. The fear-driven young man he intended to corrupt has instead become a clear-thinking Jedi who sees through deception. But he still has one card left to play. Yes, he says, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carries more menace than any shout. I am Darth Sidious, Dark Lord of the Sith. I have been the hand behind every major event in your life. Anakin Skywalker, the Trade Federation's invasion of Naboo that brought you to Coruscant, the Clone Wars that gave you purpose, even your mother's death, which taught you the power of anger. The revelation hits Anakin like a physical blow. You killed my mother? The Tusken Raiders killed your mother. Palpatine corrects with a cruel smile. I simply made sure they would be in the right place at the right time. Your anger at their deaths was educational. It showed me how easily you could be turned to the dark side. When properly motivated, Mace has heard enough. He raises his lightsaber, ready to end this conversation permanently. But Anakin holds up a hand, stopping him. Why? Anakin asks, his voice barely controlled. Why orchestrate all of this? Why manipulate an entire galaxy into war? What could possibly be worth millions of deaths? Order, Palpatine replies, rising slowly to his feet as dark side energy begins to coalesce around him. This galaxy is chaos, Anakin. Thousands of systems squabbling like children while real threats gather in the unknown regions. The Republic is weak, inefficient, corrupt beyond redemption. It needed to be replaced with something stronger. An empire, Mace says grimly. An empire with the power to bring true peace, Palpatine confirms. And at my side, the most powerful Force user in galactic history. You, Anakin. Together, we could have ruled the galaxy and brought order to the chaos. Ruled, Anakin repeats. Not served, not protected. Ruled. You wanted to turn me into a tyrant. I wanted to turn you into a god. Palpatine snaps, his patience finally exhausted. But if you're too weak to seize your destiny, then you'll die with the rest of these fools. The transformation is instant and terrible. The kindly Chancellor Palpatine vanishes completely, replaced by something ancient and evil that wears his face like a mask. Dark side energy erupts from his body in visible waves, causing the remaining furniture in the room to splinter and crack. His eyes burn with yellow fire, and when he speaks, his voice carries the weight of decades of carefully suppressed hatred. If you will not be my apprentice, then you will be my victim. Force lightning explodes from Palpatine's fingertips, not the controlled bursts he used against Mace earlier, but a torrent of pure dark side energy designed to kill. The attack splits between both Jedi, forcing them to defend simultaneously. Mace brings his purple blade up in a classic Soresu deflection, the lightning crackling against the lightsaber's energy field before dissipating harmlessly. But Anakin does something different. Instead of simply blocking the attack, he reaches out with the Force and begins to absorb the dark side energy, channeling it harmlessly into the floor beneath his feet. Impressive, Palpatine hisses, increasing the intensity of his attack. But can you maintain that technique while fighting for your life? He recalls his red lightsaber to his hand with a gesture, the weapon flying across the room and igniting as it settles into his grip. The crimson blade moves with inhuman speed, forcing both Jedi to abandon their defensive positions and engage in close combat. What follows is perhaps the most intense lightsaber duel in galactic history. Palpatine, revealed as Darth Sidious, fights with all the skill and power of a Sith Lord who has had decades to perfect his craft. His Makashi style is elegant and deadly, each thrust and parry performed with mathematical precision. But more than technique, he brings raw dark side power to bear, using the Force to hurl debris, create sonic attacks, and even manipulate gravity itself. Against this onslaught, Mace Windu employs his legendary Varpad technique, the seventh form of lightsaber combat that channels dark side energy and turns it against its user. His purple blade becomes a blur of motion, each strike powered by the very darkness he fights against. It's a dangerous technique that brings him close to the dark side. But in this moment, it's exactly what's needed. Anakin, meanwhile, fights with a style that's uniquely his own. Trained primarily in Gem-So, he combines powerful overhead strikes with acrobatic Force-enhanced movements. But more than his physical technique, he brings a clarity of purpose that Palpatine never expected. This is not the conflicted young man the Sith Lord has been manipulating. This is a Jedi who has seen through the deception and chosen his path. The three-way battle destroys what remains of the office. Palpatine's desk, already split in half, is reduced to splinters as the combatants use every piece of furniture as weapons. The great windows that once offered a panoramic view of Coruscant are shattered by Force pushes and lightning redirected from lightsaber blades. The very walls bear scorch marks from near misses that would have been fatal to any normal being. Palpatine fights brilliantly, but he faces a crucial disadvantage. His Makashi form, elegant as it is, was designed for single combat. Against two opponents working in coordination, especially opponents of Mace and Anakin's caliber, Even a Sith Lord begins to struggle. "You cannot win," Palpatine snarls as he's forced to give ground. "Even if you defeat me, my plans are already in motion. Order 66 will proceed, and every Jedi in the galaxy will die." "What's Order 66? Anakin demands, pressing his attack. "A command protocol built into every clone trooper," Mace explains between parries. "We suspected something like this existed." Palpatine laughs, a sound like breaking glass. "Suspected but never proved." Even now, as we speak, every clone commander in the Republic is receiving the signal that will turn them against their Jedi generals. "Your precious order dies tonight." But as he speaks, Palpatine reaches toward his desk with the Force, trying to activate a hidden transmitter that will send the Order 66 signal across the galaxy. Anakin senses the movement and reacts instinctively, using his own Force powers to intercept the device and crush it in midair. "No," Anakin says firmly. "No more manipulation, no more control, no more death." Palpatine's eyes widen as he realizes his ultimate contingency plan has been thwarted. Without the Order 66 signal, the clone army will remain loyal to the Republic and the Jedi. His carefully orchestrated genocide will never happen. "Impossible," he whispers. "You couldn't have known." "I know enough," Anakin interrupts. "I know that you've been manipulating me my entire adult life. I know that you've orchestrated a war that killed millions of people. I know that you're planning to murder every Jedi in the galaxy, including my friends, my teachers, and my wife." "Your wife?" Palpatine's expression shifts to cruel amusement, even as he continues to fight. "Senator Amidala is one of my most vocal critics in the Senate. Did you think I would allow her to live, even if you joined me? She would have been eliminated, along with all the other obstacles to my empire." The words hit Anakin harder than any physical blow. All of Palpatine's promises about saving Padmé's life were lies. Even if he had turned to the dark side, even if he had become the Sith apprentice Palpatine wanted, Padmé would have died anyway. The woman he loves, the future mother of his children, was never going to be saved by the dark side. She was always going to be sacrificed for Palpatine's vision of order. "You monster!" Anakin breathes, and for the first time in the fight, genuine anger enters his voice. But this is not the wild, uncontrolled rage that leads to the dark side. This is the righteous fury of a protector who has seen evil revealed in its true form. The change in Anakin's fighting style is immediate and devastating. His attacks become faster, more precise, fueled by determination rather than hate. He fights not for personal gain or even revenge, but for the protection of everyone Palpatine has threatened to destroy. Mace, sensing the shift, coordinates his own attacks to complement Anakin's new rhythm. The two Jedi move like dancers in a deadly ballet, their lightsabers weaving patterns that leave Palpatine with fewer and fewer openings to exploit. Desperate now, Palpatine unleashes one final gambit. He reaches deep into the dark side, drawing upon reservoirs of power that few Sith have ever accessed. Dark energy erupts from his body in waves, causing the very air to shimmer with malevolent force. The attack is designed to kill both Jedi instantly, but it requires him to drop his lightsaber defense. It's the opening Anakin has been waiting for. Moving with Force-enhanced speed, he lunges forward just as Palpatine begins to channel his ultimate attack. The blue blade of his lightsaber pierces through the dark side energy, as if it were merely mist, finding the gap in Palpatine's defenses with surgical precision. The lightsaber enters just below Palpatine's heart and emerges from his back, the energy blade cauterizing the wound instantly. For a moment, the Dark Lord of the Sith simply stands there, impaled on the weapon of his intended apprentice, his yellow eyes wide with shock and disbelief. "Impossible," he whispers again, but now the word carries no power. "The dark side is stronger." "No," Anakin says quietly, looking into the eyes of the man who destroyed his childhood and tried to corrupt his soul. "Love is stronger. Hope is stronger. The willingness to sacrifice yourself for others is stronger. You never understood that, and that's why you failed." Darth Sidious, the secret master of the Sith, who has manipulated galactic events for decades, who orchestrated the Clone Wars and planned to rule an empire that would span the galaxy, dies not with grand pronouncements or final curses, but with the quiet dignity that comes from being utterly, completely wrong about the nature of power. As his body falls to the floor, the dark side energy that has been accumulating in the room disperses like smoke, leaving behind only the natural light of Coruscant's setting sun streaming through the broken windows. Anakin deactivates his lightsaber and steps back, his hands shaking slightly as the magnitude of what just happened settles in. He has killed the most powerful Sith Lord in 1,000 years. He has prevented the genocide of the Jedi Order. He has saved the Republic from falling to tyranny. But more than any of that, he has chosen the light over the darkness, trust over fear, and love over power. Mace places a hand on his shoulder, his expression mixing relief with something approaching awe. "Well done, Skywalker. You've prevented a catastrophe that would have consumed the entire galaxy." "Master Windu," Anakin says, his voice still shaking slightly, "there's something I need to tell you. Something that Palpatine knew about and tried to use against me." "What is it?" "I'm married to Senator Amidala. We've been married for 3 years, since the beginning of the war, and she's pregnant." Anakin looks up at the Jedi Master, expecting anger or disappointment. "I know I've broken the Jedi code. I know there will be consequences. But I had to tell you the truth." Instead of the anger Anakin expected, Mace's expression softens. "And that attachment, that love for her, is what gave you the strength to see through Palpatine's deception, isn't it?" "Yes," Anakin admits. "When he said he would have killed her anyway, I realized that everything he'd promised was a lie. The dark side doesn't save the people you love. It destroys them." "Then perhaps," Mace says thoughtfully, "it's time for the Jedi Order to reconsider some of our teachings. This war has shown us that our old ways aren't always right. You've just proven that love, when balanced with wisdom, can be a source of strength, not weakness." As they speak, emergency medical teams and Senate security forces begin arriving at the scene. The news of Chancellor Palpatine's death will spread across the galaxy within hours, but the immediate priority is securing the scene and beginning the investigation that will uncover the full scope of his deception. But Anakin's first concern is for the Jedi scattered across the galaxy who are still in danger. He activates his comlink and begins broadcasting on all Jedi frequencies. "All Jedi forces, this is Anakin Skywalker, broadcasting from the Chancellor's office on Coruscant. Do not comply with any orders claiming to be Order 66 or any similar directives. Chancellor Palpatine has been revealed as the Sith Lord Darth Sidious and has been eliminated. The clone army may have been compromised with hidden programming. Maintain defensive positions and await further instructions from the Council. The message is received across the galaxy by Jedi who had sensed a disturbance in the Force but couldn't identify its source. On Kashyyyk, Master Yoda pauses in his discussions with the Wookiee leadership, his ancient eyes widening as he feels the death of a great darkness. The oppressive weight that has been pressing against his consciousness for years suddenly lifts, leaving him feeling lighter than he has in decades. Much to discuss we will have, he says to Chewbacca, then turns to Commander Gree. Commander, received any unusual orders? Have you? No, sir. Gree replies, his voice slightly confused. Is there something wrong? Wrong there is not, Yoda says with a small smile. Right. Things finally are. On Utapau, Obi-Wan Kenobi is pursuing the last remnants of General Grievous's droid forces when he receives Anakin's message. He pauses on a cliff overlooking the sinkhole cities, his expression shifting from confusion to relief as he processes the information. General, Commander Cody approaches from behind, his helmet tucked under his arm. We've completed our sweep of the lower levels. No sign of Grievous, but we found his starfighter. He's definitely still on the planet. Thank you, Cody, Obi-Wan says, studying his clone commander carefully. Tell me, have you received any unusual orders recently? Anything that seemed out of the ordinary? Cody frowns. No, sir. Should I have? No. Obi-Wan replies, relief evident in his voice. No, you shouldn't have. And I'm very glad you haven't. On Felucia, Aayla Secura feels the shift in the Force like a physical weight being lifted from her shoulders. She's been leading her clone troopers through the colorful fungi forests for weeks, hunting separatist holdouts. But something has always felt wrong about this campaign. Too convenient, too well planned. From an enemy perspective, Commander Bly. She calls to her second-in-command. I want you to run a full diagnostic on our communication systems. Check for any hidden protocols or embedded commands. Yes, sir. Bly responds immediately. Is there something specific we should be looking for? Anything that might compromise the loyalty of our forces? Aayla explains. I have a feeling we're going to find some very disturbing programming in our clone troops. The investigation that follows will indeed reveal the inhibitor chips. But without Palpatine's activation signal, they remain dormant. The discovery leads to one of the largest medical operations in galactic history, as clone troopers across the Republic are examined and the chips are safely removed. Meanwhile, on Coruscant, the political ramifications of Palpatine's death are already beginning to unfold. Senator Bail Organa of Alderaan, one of Palpatine's most vocal critics, takes charge of organizing emergency Senate sessions to determine the Republic's future leadership. My fellow senators, he addresses the packed Senate chamber just hours after the confrontation in the Chancellor's office. We have learned that the man we trusted to lead us through our darkest hour was, in fact, our greatest enemy. Documents found in his private chambers prove beyond any doubt that Chancellor Palpatine was the Sith Lord Darth Sidious, the secret leader of the separatist movement. The chamber erupts in chaos as senators shout questions and accusations. Some demand to know how such a deception could have gone undetected for so long. Others particularly those who had supported Palpatine's emergency powers, tried to distance themselves from his administration. Senator Padme Amidala of Naboo rises to address the chamber, her voice carrying over the din. Senators, we cannot change the past, but we can learn from it. The emergency powers we granted to the Chancellor's office were meant to be temporary, but they became permanent through our own inaction. We allowed fear of war to override our commitment to democracy. What do you propose, Senator Amidala? Bail asks. First, the immediate dissolution of all emergency powers and a return to the constitutional processes that define our republic, Padme replies. Second, a complete investigation into every policy, every military decision, and every political appointment made during Palpatine's tenure. We need to understand the full scope of his manipulation. And third, Senator Mon Mothma of Chandrila interjects. Third, we need to ensure that no single individual can ever again accumulate the kind of power that Palpatine wielded. We need stronger checks and balances, term limits for executive positions, and a more robust system of oversight. The debates that follow last for days, but they ultimately result in a stronger, more democratic republic. The emergency powers that Palpatine had accumulated are not just dissolved, but constitutionally forbidden from ever being granted again. New safeguards are put in place to prevent any single office from becoming too powerful, and a system of rotating leadership is established to ensure that no individual can hold supreme executive authority for more than a limited time. But the most immediate concern is the ongoing war. With Palpatine dead and his manipulation exposed, the separatist movement begins to collapse almost immediately. Count Dooku, captured during a Republic assault on Sereno, just days after the confrontation on Coruscant, confesses under Jedi interrogation that the entire conflict was orchestrated by his master. The war was never meant to be won. Dooku admits, his aristocratic composure finally cracking. It was meant to be prolonged, to give my master time to accumulate power and position his pieces for the final game. Every battle, every campaign, every strategic decision was designed to serve his ultimate goal of replacing the Republic with an empire. And the Separatist Council? Obi-Wan asks during the interrogation. Were they aware of the deception? Fools and pawns, Dooku replies dismissively. Newt Gunray and the others believed they were fighting for their independence from Republic taxation and regulation. They never understood that they were merely tools to be discarded once their usefulness ended. The revelation that the war was artificially prolonged enrages both sides. Republic worlds that have sacrificed millions of lives and countless resources discover that their suffering was unnecessary, manufactured by the very government they trusted to protect them. Separatist worlds learn that their legitimate grievances were exploited by a Sith Lord who never intended to honor any promises of independence or reform. The collapse of central authority on both sides leads to a series of localized conflicts as various factions attempt to seize control. But these are quickly resolved through diplomatic intervention. The new Republic government, working closely with reformed Jedi peacekeepers, negotiates settlements that address the original grievances that led to secession, while reintegrating former separatist worlds into the galactic community. General Grievous, the cyborg commander who had been the face of separatist military might, makes one final desperate stand on Mustafar. Cut off from supply lines and abandoned by his political masters, he attempts to rally the remaining droid forces for a suicide attack on Coruscant. But without the manufacturing capabilities that Palpatine had secretly provided, his army is a fraction of its former strength. The final battle is brief but decisive. Republic forces, led by clone commanders, who have been freed from their inhibitor chips, and now fight with renewed purpose, overwhelm Grievous's position within hours. The cyborg general dies as he lived, fighting to the end, but his death marks the definitive conclusion of the Clone Wars. The transformation of the clone army becomes one of the most significant social issues facing the post-war galaxy. Created to be soldiers and nothing else, the clones suddenly find themselves in a galaxy that no longer needs their military service. Some choose to remain in the smaller peacekeeping force that replaces the Grand Army of the Republic. But many others seek new purposes in civilian life. Anakin, now elevated to the rank of Jedi Master, in recognition of his role in exposing and defeating Palpatine, becomes one of the strongest advocates for clone rights. He argues before the Senate that these men, regardless of their artificial origins, have earned full citizenship through their service and sacrifice. They are not property to be disposed of when their usefulness ends, he tells the assembled senators. They are sentient beings who have fought and bled for the Republic, who have saved countless lives and worlds. They deserve the same rights and opportunities as any natural-born citizen. The Clone Rights Act that emerges from these debates becomes a landmark piece of legislation, not just for its immediate impact on the clone troopers, but for the precedent it sets regarding the rights of artificial life forms. The galaxy's growing population of droids, bioengineered beings, and other synthetic life forms all benefit from the expanded definition of personhood that the Act establishes. Captain Rex chooses to remain in military service, becoming an instructor at the New Republic Naval Academy on Corellia. His experience fighting alongside Jedi gives him unique insights into combined Force user and conventional military tactics, making him an invaluable resource for training the next generation of Republic officers. Commander Cody takes a different path, working with Obi-Wan to establish a diplomatic corps focused on preventing conflicts before they escalate to warfare. His understanding of military strategy, combined with Obi-Wan's negotiation skills, proves highly effective in resolving disputes that might otherwise have led to violence. But perhaps the most significant change occurs within the Jedi Order itself. Anakin's success in resisting the dark side, not through the suppression of emotion, but through the channeling of love and attachment into protective strength, forces the Council to re-examine fundamental assumptions about the nature of the Force and the path to enlightenment. For 1,000 years, we have taught that attachment leads to the dark side. Yoda admits during an emergency council session. Fear of loss, we said, leads to suffering, but wrong we were. About the nature of attachment itself, Master Plo Koon nods in agreement. Anakin's connection to Senator Amidala didn't weaken him. It gave him the clarity to see through Palpatine's deception. His love for her provided the strength to resist the very temptation that attachment is supposed to create. We need to distinguish between attachment and healthy relationships, adds Master Ki Adimundi. Between possessive obsession and genuine care for others. The former leads to the dark side, but the latter may be essential to understanding the light. The debates that follow reshape Jedi philosophy in ways that haven't been seen since the Order's founding. The new code, developed over months of discussion and meditation, acknowledges that emotions are part of the Force and should be understood rather than suppressed. There is no emotion, there is peace. Becomes emotion, yet peace. There is no passion, there is serenity. Becomes passion, yet serenity. The changes seem subtle, but they represent a fundamental shift in how Jedi view themselves and their place in the galaxy. Young Jedi are now taught to recognize and channel their emotions constructively rather than deny them entirely. Masters are encouraged to form meaningful relationships with their Padawans, colleagues, and the civilians they serve. The cold detachment that characterized the Old Order gives way to compassionate engagement with the galaxy they protect. Training programs are established for older candidates as well, recognizing that the Force can manifest later in life, and that adult perspectives bring wisdom that young Padawans often lack. Former soldiers, politicians, scholars, and even ex-criminals who show Force sensitivity are welcomed into the Order. Their life experience is valued rather than seen as obstacles to overcome. Anakin takes on multiple Padawans over the years, but his first and most significant student is a young girl from Tatooine named Beru Lars. Orphaned in a Tusken Raider attack similar to the one that killed Anakin's mother, she was rescued by Republic forces during the systematic liberation of slave worlds that followed the war's end. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Anakin tells her during one of their training sessions in the reconstructed Jedi Temple. But that's not the whole truth. Fear can also lead to protection. Anger can lead to justice. Even hate, when directed at genuine evil rather than people, can provide the strength to fight darkness. How do you know the difference? Beru asks, her young face serious beyond her years. By remembering what you're fighting for, Anakin replies. When I fought Palpatine, I wasn't motivated by hatred of him, even though he had done terrible things. I was motivated by love for the people he threatened to destroy. That made all the difference. The personal dimension of Anakin's transformation becomes public knowledge when he and Padme hold a formal wedding ceremony on Naboo, attended by Jedi Masters, Republic senators, and representatives from across the galaxy. The event, broadcast live throughout the Republic, signals the beginning of a new era in which Jedi are seen not as distant guardians, but as part of the communities they serve. Padme gives birth to Luke and Leia in the medical facilities of the rebuilt Jedi Temple, surrounded by friends and protected by the most powerful Force users in the galaxy. The delivery is without complications. The dark visions that plagued Anakin in the original timeline having been revealed as Sith-induced nightmares rather than prophetic warnings. Holding his children for the first time, Anakin is struck by how different this moment feels from what he had imagined during his years of fear and anxiety. There is no shadow of death hanging over the birth, no sense of impending loss or doom. Instead, there is only joy, hope, and the promise of a future free from the manipulations that have plagued the galaxy for so long. They're beautiful, Padme whispers, exhausted but radiant as she cradles Leia, while Anakin holds Luke. Do you think they'll be Jedi if they choose to be? Anakin replies, watching as Luke's tiny fingers seem to reach toward the Force itself. But whether they follow our path or forge their own, they'll grow up in a galaxy where they're free to make that choice. That's more than either of us had. The twins' early years are spent in an environment very different from what Luke and Leia experienced in the original timeline. Instead of being separated and hidden, they grow up together in the open, their parentage known and celebrated throughout the galaxy. The children of Anakin Skywalker and Padme Amidala become symbols of hope and renewal, representing the new era of peace and cooperation that their father's choice made possible. Luke shows strong Force sensitivity from an early age, but his training differs significantly from traditional Jedi education. Instead of being taken from his parents as a young child, he lives with his family while receiving instruction from various Jedi masters. Anakin is his primary teacher, but Obi-Wan, Yoda, and others contribute to his education, ensuring that he receives a well-rounded understanding of the Force and its applications. Leia demonstrates Force sensitivity as well, but her interests lean more toward politics and diplomacy than combat. Following in her mother's footsteps, she becomes involved in Republic government at a young age, serving as a youth representative and later as a full senator from Naboo. Her Force abilities enhance her natural charisma and empathy, making her one of the most effective political leaders of her generation. The liberation of Tatooine becomes one of Anakin's most personal missions. Using his influence as a war hero and Jedi Master, he organizes a systematic campaign to free every slave on the planet and bring those responsible for the slave trade to justice. The operation takes months, but it results in the liberation of hundreds of thousands of beings and the complete dismantling of Tatooine's slave-based economy. Shmi Skywalker, Anakin's mother, is among those freed during the early phases of the operation. Her reunion with her son, now a grown man and a hero of the Republic, is broadcast across the galaxy and becomes one of the most watched events in galactic history. The image of Anakin embracing his mother while former slaves celebrate their freedom around them becomes an iconic symbol of the new Republic's commitment to justice and equality. "I promised I would come back for you," Anakin tells his mother as they stand together in the place where he was once enslaved. "I'm sorry it took so long. You came back exactly when you were supposed to," Shmi replies, her eyes filled with pride as she looks at the man her little boy has become. "You saved not just me, but everyone. I always knew you were destined for something special." The transformation of Tatooine from a lawless frontier world to a thriving Republic member state takes years, but it serves as a model for similar operations throughout the Outer Rim. Slave worlds are liberated, criminal cartels are dismantled, and legitimate governments are established to protect the rights of all sentient beings. Jabba the Hutt, the crime lord who once owned Anakin and his mother, attempts to flee Tatooine as Republic forces close in on his operation. But his escape is blocked by a fleet of Republic ships commanded by Admiral Wolf Yularen, with Anakin serving as the mission's Jedi advisor. "Mighty Jabba," Anakin says as he enters the crime lord's throne room, his lightsaber conspicuously visible on his belt. "We meet again." The sight of the former slave boy, now a powerful Jedi Master, causes genuine fear to flicker across Jabba's expression. He has heard stories of Anakin Skywalker's role in ending the Clone Wars and defeating the Sith, but seeing him in person makes the reality undeniable. "The great Anakin Skywalker honors my humble palace," Jabba rumbles in Huttese, his tone carefully neutral despite the fear in his eyes. "I'm here to offer you a choice," Anakin replies, speaking in perfect Huttese. learned during his years in slavery. You can surrender voluntarily, provide full cooperation in dismantling your criminal network, and receive a fair trial under Republic law. Or you can resist, and I will personally ensure that every being you have ever enslaved, murdered, or tortured receives justice. The trial of Jabba the Hutt becomes a galactic media sensation, with thousands of former slaves testifying to the crimes committed under his authority. The evidence is overwhelming, and the crime lord is sentenced to life imprisonment on a Republic penal world. His vast criminal empire is dismantled, with its assets used to compensate victims and fund the reconstruction of worlds damaged by his activities. The political restructuring of the Republic takes much longer than the military victory, but it proves equally important for the galaxy's long-term stability. The emergency powers that Palpatine had accumulated are not merely dissolved, but constitutionally forbidden from ever being granted again. A new system of checks and balances is established, with term limits for executive positions and robust oversight mechanisms to prevent any individual from gaining excessive authority. Senator Mon Mothma of Chandrila emerges as one of the key architects of the new government structure. Working closely with Bail Organa, Padme Amidala, and other reform-minded senators, she helps draft constitutional amendments that fundamentally alter how the Republic operates. We cannot simply return to the old system, she argues during the Constitutional Convention on Coruscant. The old system allowed Palpatine to rise to power in the first place. We need something stronger, more resilient, more democratic. The new constitution establishes a rotating executive council rather than a single chancellor, with members serving limited terms and no individual able to hold the same position more than once. Military command is separated from civilian authority, preventing any future leader from using the Republic's armed forces for personal gain. The Constitutional Convention itself becomes a historic event, with representatives from over 10,000 worlds gathering on Coruscant for months of debate and negotiation. Padme emerges as one of the key voices in these discussions, her experience with Palpatine's manipulation giving her unique insights into the weaknesses of the old system. We cannot simply patch the holes in a broken foundation, she argues, during one particularly heated session. Palpatine's rise was not an aberration. It was the inevitable result of a system that concentrated too much power in too few hands. We need to build something entirely new, something that makes such manipulation structurally impossible. Senator Fang Zar of Cern Prime raises a concern shared by many. But without strong central authority, how do we maintain unity across such a vast territory? The Outer Rim worlds already feel disconnected from the core. Further decentralization might lead to fragmentation. Unity doesn't require uniformity, Padme responds. We can maintain galactic cooperation while allowing each world to govern itself according to its own culture and needs. The key is creating systems that encourage voluntary cooperation rather than forcing compliance through centralized authority. The debates continue for weeks, with each major provision of the new constitution requiring extensive discussion and compromise. The question of executive authority proves particularly contentious, with some delegates favoring a return to the old chancellorship system and others advocating for complete elimination of any central executive. The solution that emerges is elegant in its complexity. The Executive Council consists of 7 members, each elected for 3-year terms by different constituencies. The core worlds, the mid-rim, the outer rim, the corporate sector, the force-sensitive communities, the academic institutions, and the military services. No individual can serve more than 2 consecutive terms, and major decisions require consensus among at least 5 council members. Most importantly, the new government includes formal recognition of Force users as a legitimate part of the Republic structure, but with clear limitations on their authority. Jedi can serve as advisors, mediators, and peacekeepers, but they cannot hold executive political positions or command military forces, except in times of declared emergency. The judicial system receives a complete overhaul as well. The Supreme Court is expanded from 9 to 15 justices, with mandatory representation from different regions and species. A new appeals process ensures that no single court can make decisions affecting entire sectors without extensive review. Most controversially, the new system includes provisions for Force user testimony, recognizing that Jedi and other sensitives can provide insights unavailable through conventional investigation methods. The economic restructuring proves just as complex as the political changes. Palpatine's secret control of major corporations and trade routes had distorted the galaxy's economy in ways that take years to fully understand. Entire industries that had been artificially sustained to support the war effort suddenly find themselves without purpose, while other sectors that had been suppressed emerge to fill the void. The banking clan, heavily implicated in financing both sides of the Clone Wars, undergoes complete reorganization under Republic oversight. Their assets are used to establish a new galactic development bank focused on reconstruction and peaceful development rather than war profiteering. Senator Rush Clovis of Scipio, who had been secretly working to expose the banking clan's corruption, becomes the new institution's first director. The old financial system was designed to benefit the few at the expense of the many, Clovis explains during the bank's inaugural address. Our new mandate is simple: use galactic resources to improve the lives of all sentient beings, not to accumulate wealth for corporate shareholders. The transformation of military industries proves particularly challenging. Worlds like Kuat, whose entire economies had been built around starship construction for the war effort, must completely reimagine their purpose. The Kuat drive yards, once the primary manufacturer of Republic warships, retool their facilities to produce exploration vessels, cargo haulers, and civilian transports. Kuat of Kuat, the hereditary leader of the shipbuilding corporation, initially resists the transition. You're asking us to abandon generations of expertise and tradition, he argues during negotiations with the new Republic government. Military shipbuilding is what we do best. Then use that expertise for exploration instead of destruction, Anakin suggests during his role as a mediating Jedi. The galaxy is vast, and there are still unknown regions to explore, new worlds to discover, new civilizations to contact peacefully. Your ships could open new frontiers instead of creating new battlefields. The suggestion sparks a renaissance in exploration and scientific research. The Republic Exploration Service, established with ships built by former military contractors, launches dozens of expeditions into the unknown regions. These missions discover new worlds, establish diplomatic contact with previously isolated civilizations, and expand the boundaries of galactic knowledge in ways that would have been impossible during the war years. One of the most significant discoveries comes from an expedition led by Captain John Dodonna, a former Republic naval officer who had been instrumental in several Clone Wars victories. His ship, the Pathfinder, makes contact with a civilization in the Chiss Ascendancy that had been monitoring galactic affairs from the shadows for decades. The Chiss, led by Senior Captain Thrawn, revealed that they had been aware of Palpatine's manipulation and had been preparing for the possibility of Imperial expansion into their territory. Thrawn's strategic genius and deep understanding of galactic politics make him a valuable ally in establishing the new peaceful order. Your Jedi's victory over the hidden Sith was impressive, Thrawn admits during diplomatic meetings on Coruscant. We had calculated several scenarios for confronting this threat, but the solution of turning the intended apprentice against the master was not among our predictions. It demonstrates a form of strategic thinking that transcends conventional military analysis. The diplomatic success with the Chiss opens doors to other previously unknown civilizations. The Hapan Consortium, the Yavetha, and dozens of smaller polities that had remained isolated during the Clone Wars gradually begin establishing relationships with the New Republic. Each contact brings new perspectives, technologies, and opportunities for cultural exchange. The transformation of the Jedi Order during this period becomes equally revolutionary. The philosophical changes that began with Anakin's victory over Palpatine evolve into a complete restructuring of how Force users are trained, organized, and integrated into galactic society. Master Yoda, now approaching his 900th birthday, takes on the role of chief architect for the new Jedi philosophy. Working with Anakin, Mace Windu, Obi-Wan, and other senior masters, he develops training programs that acknowledge emotion as a natural part of Force sensitivity, rather than something to be suppressed. For 800 years, trained Jedi we have in the ways of suppression. Yoda explains during a council session dedicated to educational reform. Deny your feelings, we taught. Attachment leads to suffering, we said. But wrong we were about the nature of attachment itself. The new training regimen that emerges is radically different from traditional Jedi education. Young sensitives are not taken from their families at early ages, but instead receive part-time instruction while maintaining their family relationships. The rigid Master-Padawan apprenticeship system is supplemented with group learning, peer mentoring, and instruction from non-Jedi experts in various fields. Ahsoka Tano, who had left the Order during the Clone Wars, returns to help develop these new programs. Her experience outside traditional Jedi structure provides valuable insights into alternative approaches to Force training. I learned more about the Force during my years away from the Temple than I had in all my previous training, she tells the assembled masters. Not because the Temple's teaching was wrong, but because I was finally free to explore the Force without the constraints of dogma. We need to give all our students that same freedom to discover their own relationship with the Force. The new Jedi academies that are established throughout the galaxy reflect this philosophy. Instead of massive, intimidating temples that separate Force users from the rest of society, these institutions are integrated into their local communities. Students live with host families, attend regular schools for academic subjects, and participate in community service as part of their Force training. Anakin's Academy on Naboo becomes the flagship of this new approach. Located in Theed's Arts District rather than isolated on a mountaintop, the Academy's students can be seen throughout the city, helping with community projects, studying in local libraries, and forming friendships with non-Force sensitive peers. One of Anakin's first students is Beru Lars, the young Tatooine orphan whose Force sensitivity emerged after the traumatic loss of her family. But unlike traditional Jedi training, which would have focused on helping her suppress the emotional trauma, Anakin's approach acknowledges her grief as a natural and necessary part of healing. The pain you feel is real, he tells her during one of their early sessions. Trying to pretend it doesn't exist won't make it go away, but you can choose what to do with that pain. You can let it consume you, or you can use it to understand others who are suffering and find ways to help them. Beru's training includes traditional lightsaber combat and Force techniques, but also counseling, psychology, conflict resolution, and community organizing. By the time she becomes a Jedi Knight, she has established a network of support services for war orphans throughout the Outer Rim, using her understanding of loss to help others heal from their own trauma. The diversity of paths available to Force users expands dramatically during this period. Traditional combat-focused training continues for those called to peacekeeping roles, but new specializations emerge for healers, negotiators, investigators, teachers, and scholars. Some Jedi choose to serve in the New Republic government as advisors or mediators, while others pursue careers in private sector fields where their abilities can benefit society. Corran Horn, a former Corpsec investigator who discovered his Force sensitivity during the post-war period, develops a specialization in criminal investigation that combines conventional detective work with Force-enhanced intuition. His success in solving complex cases that had baffled conventional investigators leads to the establishment of the Jedi Investigative Service, a branch of the Order that works with local law enforcement throughout the galaxy. The Force doesn't solve crimes for you, Horn explains to his students, but it can guide you to ask the right questions, notice the right details, and understand the motivations behind criminal behavior. Combined with solid investigative technique, it's an incredibly powerful tool for justice. The medical applications of Force abilities receive renewed attention as well. Jedi healers had always existed, but the New Order places much greater emphasis on these skills. Specialized medical training is developed for Force sensitives, combining traditional healing techniques with modern medical knowledge. Barriss Offee, the former Padawan who had bombed the Jedi Temple during the Clone Wars, is released from prison after serving 2 years of her sentence. Her genuine remorse and her natural healing abilities make her a candidate for the new medical training program. Despite the controversy surrounding her past actions, I use my abilities to destroy, she says during her application interview. I want to spend the rest of my life using them to heal instead. I know I can never undo the harm I caused, but perhaps I can balance it by helping others. Her work developing Force-enhanced surgical techniques saves thousands of lives over the following years. Her specialized knowledge of cybernetics, gained during her terrorist activities, proves invaluable in treating clone troopers who suffered mechanical injuries during the war. The irony is not lost on anyone that the skills she developed for destruction become tools for healing. The personal lives of the Skywalker family during this period become a matter of galactic interest, not just because of Anakin's heroic status, but because they represent the new model of Force user integration into society. Rather than living in monastic isolation, the family maintains a public presence while balancing their responsibilities to the Jedi Order, the Republic government, and each other. Luke and Leia's childhood is spent between multiple worlds and communities. They spend part of each year on Naboo with their parents, part on Coruscant learning about galactic government, and part on various frontier worlds where their father's work takes the family. This nomadic lifestyle gives them a broad perspective on galactic diversity that proves invaluable in their later careers. Luke's Force training begins almost from birth, but it follows the new integrative model rather than traditional Jedi methods. He learns to meditate by sitting quietly with his father in their garden on Naboo. He develops his precognitive abilities by helping his mother anticipate political developments in the Senate. His telekinetic skills emerge naturally during play with his sister and friends. The Force is not separate from life. Anakin teaches his son during one of their practice sessions. It's part of everything you do, every relationship you have, every choice you make. Don't think of it as a special power that you use in emergencies. Think of it as a way of understanding and connecting with the universe around you. Leia's approach to Force development is different, but equally valid. Her abilities manifest primarily in enhanced empathy and intuition, skills that serve her well in her political training. She can sense the emotions and motivations of others with remarkable accuracy, making her an extraordinarily effective negotiator, even as a child. During a family diplomatic mission to Alderaan when the twins are 8 years old, Leia's insights prove crucial in resolving a trade dispute that had been festering for months. While the adult negotiators focus on economic data and legal precedents, she quietly observes the emotional dynamics of the discussions. The Alderaanian representative isn't really angry about the trade terms, she tells her mother privately. He's sad because his son was killed in the war, and he thinks the other side doesn't care about the people who died. If someone acknowledged his loss, he might be more willing to compromise. Padme follows her daughter's suggestion, and the negotiation takes a completely different turn. The formal diplomatic language gives way to a more personal discussion about the war's impact on all sides. Within hours, an agreement is reached that had seemed impossible just days before. The twins' education includes regular contact with non-Force sensitive children as well. They attend public schools on whatever world the family is currently residing, participate in local sports and cultural activities, and form friendships that have nothing to do with their family's famous status. This integration sometimes creates challenges. When Luke is 10, his class on Coruscant includes several children whose fathers died in the Clone Wars. Some of them blame the Jedi for the conflict, not understanding the complex manipulation that had actually caused it. Luke faces hostility and even physical confrontation from classmates who see him as representing the organization that got their fathers killed. "They hate me because I'm a Jedi," Luke tells his father after a particularly difficult day at school. "They think we started the war." "No," Anakin replies carefully. "They hate you because they're in pain. And pain sometimes makes people look for someone to blame. The truth is complicated, and it's easier to blame the Jedi than to understand that their fathers died because evil people manipulated the galaxy into fighting itself. So what do? You show them through your actions that the Jedi they know today are different from the organization that fought in the war. You prove that we're not warriors looking for battles to fight, but people committed to helping others and preventing conflicts. And you do it not with force powers or lightsaber skills, but with kindness, patience, and genuine friendship." Luke takes his father's advice to heart, gradually winning over his classmates through consistent displays of empathy and support. When one of the boys who had been most hostile to him loses his mother in a transport accident, Luke is the first to offer comfort and practical help. The experience teaches him lessons about leadership and reconciliation that no formal training could provide. Leia faces different but equally important challenges. Her obvious intelligence and political acumen sometimes create resentment among peers who see her as showing off or trying to dominate discussions. Learning to use her abilities to support others rather than overshadow them becomes a crucial part of her development. During a student council election at her school on Naboo, Leia initially campaigns on her own qualifications and ideas. Despite her excellent proposals, she loses badly to a less qualified but more popular candidate. The experience teaches her that political success requires more than just being right. It requires building coalitions and making others feel valued and included. "I thought being smart was enough," she confesses to her mother after the defeat. "I thought if I had the best ideas, people would naturally support me. Intelligence is important," Padme replies. "But people don't follow ideas. They follow people they trust and like. Your ideas were excellent, but you didn't give your classmates any reason to feel personally invested in your success. Next time, focus on how your proposals will benefit others, not on how clever you are for thinking of them." The lesson serves Leia well throughout her political career. She learns to build consensus rather than impose solutions, to listen more than she speaks, and to make others feel that her victories are their victories as well. The twins' relationship with each other becomes a model for Force user cooperation. Despite their different personalities and interests, they work together instinctively. Their Force bond, allowing them to communicate and coordinate in ways that seem almost telepathic to outside observers. During a family vacation on Tatooine when they are 12, the twins become separated from their parents during a sandstorm. Rather than panic, they use their Force bond to stay connected across several kilometers of desert, eventually finding their way to safety by following their shared sense of direction. "It was like having another set of eyes and ears," Luke explains to their worried parents. "Even when I couldn't see Leia, I could feel where she was and what she was experiencing. We were never really lost because we always had each other." The incident leads to formal research into Force bonds between family members, previously considered rare and unpredictable. The twins' natural connection becomes a subject of study that helps other Force-sensitive siblings develop similar links as they enter their teenage years. Both twins begin taking on more substantial responsibilities within their respective fields of interest. Luke participates in archaeological expeditions to ancient Jedi sites, helping to recover knowledge and artifacts that had been lost during the Clone Wars. His combination of Force sensitivity and technical aptitude makes him particularly valuable in understanding ancient Force-activated technologies. One of his most significant contributions comes during an expedition to Tython, the legendary birthplace of the Jedi Order. The team, led by Master Jocasta Nu and funded by the New Republic's Cultural Preservation Initiative, discovers a series of underground chambers that had been sealed for millennia. The chambers contain holocrons, ancient texts, and training devices from the earliest days of the Jedi Order. But many of the artifacts are protected by Force-sensitive locks that require both technical skill and Force ability to open safely. Luke's unique combination of talents allows the team to access materials that might otherwise have remained sealed forever. The ancient Jedi had a much more integrated view of the Force than we developed in later centuries. Master Nu observes as they study the recovered materials. Their training combined physical, mental, and spiritual development in ways that we had forgotten. These discoveries could reshape our understanding of what it means to be a Jedi. Leia's contributions to galactic politics begin even earlier. At age 14, she authors a research paper on trade dispute resolution that becomes required reading in several university political science programs. Her analysis of how economic conflicts can be prevented through early intervention and cultural understanding impresses seasoned diplomats throughout the Republic. Her first formal diplomatic assignment comes at age 16, when she serves as a junior observer during negotiations between the Republic and the Hutt space government. The talks, aimed at establishing formal diplomatic relations and anti-slavery enforcement agreements, had been stalled for months over cultural misunderstandings and historical grievances. Leia's insights into the psychological dynamics of the negotiations prove crucial in breaking through the deadlock. She recognizes that the Hutt negotiators' apparent arrogance actually masks deep insecurity about their species' reputation in the galaxy, while the Republic representatives' legalistic approach seems dismissive of Hutt cultural values. Both sides want the same things, she observes during a private briefing with the Republic negotiating team: security, respect, and economic prosperity. But they're so focused on protecting themselves from perceived slights that they can't see their common ground. If we acknowledge their concerns about dignity and status while making our anti-slavery requirements non-negotiable, we might find a path forward. The strategy works, resulting in the first formal treaty between the Republic and Hutt space in galactic history. The agreement establishes diplomatic relations, creates mechanisms for economic cooperation, and includes strict enforcement provisions against slavery and other criminal activities. The cultural renaissance that follows the end of the Clone Wars produces some of the most significant artistic and scientific achievements in galactic history. With the resources previously devoted to warfare now available for peaceful pursuits, creativity and innovation flourish throughout the galaxy. On Coruscant, the former military research facilities are converted into universities and cultural centers. The massive factories that once produced clone trooper armor and weapons are retooled to manufacture musical instruments, art supplies, and scientific equipment. The transformation is both symbolic and practical, representing the galaxy's shift from a wartime to a peacetime economy. The Coruscant Symphony Orchestra, established with funding from the Cultural Development Initiative, becomes one of the premier musical ensembles in the galaxy. Their concerts, broadcast live to thousands of worlds, feature compositions that blend musical traditions from dozens of different species and cultures. Jar Jar Binks, the former Gungan representative whose political naivety had been exploited by Palpatine, finds redemption through his involvement in the arts renaissance. His natural storytelling ability and unique perspective on galactic events make him a celebrated performer and cultural ambassador. Mace learning that sometimes the biggest mistakes can become the biggest opportunities. He explains during an interview about his new career. Mesa helped a bad man get power, but now Mesa, using Mesa voice to help people remember what Wesa fighting for peace, friendship, and understanding between all the peoples of the galaxy. His one-man performances, combining traditional Gungan oral history techniques with galactic political commentary, become enormously popular throughout the Outer Rim. His message of redemption and second chances resonates particularly strongly with communities that suffered during the war. The scientific advances of this period are equally impressive. Research into Force phenomena, previously limited by Jedi secrecy and Sith manipulation, becomes an open field of study involving both Force users and conventional scientists. The collaboration produces insights that benefit both communities. Dr. Ilara Dawn, a former Imperial medical researcher who had defected to the Republic during the war's final stages, leads groundbreaking research into the biological basis of Force sensitivity. Her work, conducted in partnership with Jedi healers, identifies the role of midi-chlorians in Force ability and develops treatments for Force-related medical conditions. The Force is not just a mystical energy field, she explains during a presentation to the Galactic Medical Association. It has measurable biological components that interact with conventional medicine in ways we're only beginning to understand. By studying these interactions, we can help Force sensitives reach their full potential while also developing new treatments for non-Force users. Her research leads to medical advances that help treat everything from chronic pain to psychological trauma. Force-enhanced healing techniques, once limited to trained Jedi, are adapted for use by conventional medical professionals, dramatically improving healthcare outcomes throughout the galaxy. The exploration initiatives launched during this period discovered dozens of previously unknown worlds and civilizations. Each contact brings new knowledge, technologies, and perspectives that enrich galactic civilization. The discovery of the Rakata Infinite Empire ruins on Lehon provides insights into ancient galactic history, while first contact with the Yavetha leads to advances in biotechnology and environmental science. Captain Jan Dodona's exploration vessel Pathfinder becomes legendary for its peaceful contact protocols and scientific discoveries. Unlike the military expeditions of the past, these missions prioritize cultural exchange and mutual benefit over resource extraction or territorial expansion. We're not conquering new worlds, Dodonna explains to his crew during a mission briefing. We're meeting new neighbors. Every civilization we encounter has something to teach us, and we have something to offer in return. Our job is to build bridges, not claim territory. The exploration program's success leads to the establishment of the Galactic Exploration Service as a permanent Republic institution, funded by all member worlds and staffed by volunteers from dozens of species. The service continues the work of peaceful exploration and first contact protocols developed during the post-war period. The economic prosperity that results from these peaceful policies benefits worlds throughout the galaxy. Trade agreements, based on mutual benefit rather than exploitation, create wealth that is shared more broadly than ever before. The elimination of military spending frees up resources for infrastructure, education, and social services. Tatooine's transformation becomes one of the most dramatic examples of this new prosperity. Once a backwater desert world dominated by crime syndicates and slave traders, it becomes a thriving hub of commerce and culture. The water farming techniques developed by moisture farmers are expanded using Republic technology, making large areas of the planet habitable for the first time in millennia. Anakin's mother, Shmi, becomes an unexpected leader in Tatooine's transformation. Her experiences as a slave give her unique insights into the needs of the planet's most vulnerable populations, while her relationship with the famous Jedi Master provides her with resources and connections to make real change possible. I spent my whole life dreaming of freedom, she says during the dedication ceremony for Tatooine's first public university. But I never imagined that freedom could mean this, not just the absence of chains, but the presence of opportunity, education, and hope for future generations. The university, built on the site of the former slave market in Mos Eisley, becomes a symbol of Tatooine's transformation. Students from across the Outer Rim come to study desert agriculture, moisture farming technology, and sustainable development in harsh environments. The transformation extends beyond economics to social and cultural changes as well. Species that had been marginalized or exploited during the war years find new opportunities for advancement and recognition. The Geonosians, whose world had been devastated by the conflict, receive massive reconstruction aid and become leaders in environmental restoration technology. Queen Karina the Great, the surviving Geonosian leader, works closely with Republic scientists to develop new approaches to planetary rehabilitation. Her hive's natural engineering abilities, combined with Republic resources and technology, create innovative solutions for worlds damaged by war or environmental disaster. War destroyed my people's home. She communicates through her translator droid during a galactic environmental conference. But peace gives us the chance to make it better than it ever was before. We build now not weapons of war, but tools of life. The Geonosian-designed habitat restoration systems become standard throughout the galaxy, helping to repair worlds damaged by centuries of industrial exploitation or military conflict. Their work on Ryloth, restoring areas devastated by separatist strip mining operations, becomes a model for similar projects on dozens of other worlds. The clone troopers' integration into civilian society produces its own set of challenges and successes. These men, created for war and knowing nothing else, must find new purposes in a galaxy that no longer needs their military skills. The process is difficult, but it ultimately enriches both the clones and the communities they join. Captain Rex's military academy on Corellia becomes one of the most prestigious institutions of its kind in the galaxy. His combination of combat experience and natural teaching ability produces a new generation of Republic officers trained in peacekeeping rather than warfare. War taught us how to destroy, he tells his students during their graduation ceremony. Peace teaches us how to build. Both skills are necessary, but knowing when to use each one is what separates a good officer from a great one. Commander Cody's diplomatic corps proves equally successful. His understanding of military strategy gives him unique insights into conflict prevention and resolution. His work in establishing early warning systems for potential disputes prevents dozens of conflicts that might otherwise have escalated to violence. Many other clones find their calling in civilian professions. Some become teachers, using their disciplined training methods to help educate young people. Others become mechanics and engineers, applying their technical skills to peaceful construction projects. A significant number choose to become farmers or craftsmen, finding satisfaction in creating life rather than taking it. The process is not without its difficulties. Many clones struggle with post-traumatic stress from their war experiences, while others find it difficult to adapt to civilian decision-making after years of following orders without question. Support services are established to help with these transitions, staffed by former Jedi healers and civilian psychologists working together. CT-5555, known as Fives, becomes one of the most prominent advocates for clone rights and mental health services. His near-death experience during the discovery of the inhibitor chips gives him unique credibility in speaking about clone autonomy and the importance of individual identity. "We were created to be identical," he says during a speech to the Galactic Senate. "But we became individuals through our choices, our experiences, and our relationships with the people we served alongside. That individuality is precious, and it's something that peace allows us to explore in ways that war never could. His advocacy leads to the establishment of the Clone Veterans Association, an organization that provides support services, job training, and advocacy for clone rights throughout the galaxy. The association becomes a model for similar organizations serving other groups that need assistance transitioning to civilian life. The religious and philosophical renaissance of this period proves equally significant. The revelation that the Sith had been manipulating galactic events for decades leads many beings to re-examine their spiritual beliefs and philosophical assumptions. New religious movements emerge, while existing ones undergo significant reforms. The Jedi Order's transformation has ripple effects throughout the galaxy's spiritual communities. Other Force-using traditions, such as the Guardians of the Wills on Jedha and the Night Sisters of Dathomir, begin establishing formal relationships with the reformed Jedi for the first time in centuries. Chirrut Imwe and Baze Malbus, the Guardian Priest and former Guardian from Jedha, become instrumental in developing interfaith dialogue between different Force traditions. Their combination of spiritual devotion and practical experience makes them effective ambassadors between communities that had previously viewed each other with suspicion. The Force flows through all things, Chirrut explains during an interfaith conference on Coruscant. Different traditions may understand and approach this truth in different ways, but the underlying reality is the same. We are all connected, all part of the same cosmic unity. Their work leads to the establishment of the Galactic Interfaith Council, an organization that promotes understanding and cooperation between different spiritual traditions. The Council becomes particularly important in mediating religious conflicts and ensuring that spiritual differences don't escalate to political or military confrontations. The Night Sisters' integration into galactic society proves particularly challenging given their history of dark side use and isolation. Mother Talzin's death during the war's final stages leaves the surviving Night Sisters without clear leadership. But it also provides an opportunity for a new generation to forge a different path. Merrin, one of the youngest surviving Night Sisters, emerges as a reformist leader who advocates for adapting their traditions to emphasize healing and protection rather than manipulation and control. Her work with Republic relief efforts on Dathomir demonstrates how Night Sister magic can be used for constructive purposes. Our ancestors turned to darkness because they felt abandoned and threatened, she explains during negotiations with Republic representatives. But darkness breeds more darkness. We want to find a different way, one that honors our heritage while embracing the light. The reformed Night Sister tradition that emerges under her leadership maintains its distinctive character while rejecting the more harmful aspects of its history. Their unique approach to Force use, emphasizing connection to natural environments and communal decision-making, provides valuable insights for other Force traditions. As the years pass, the success of the peaceful transformation becomes undeniable. Conflicts between worlds become increasingly rare, resolved through diplomatic intervention before they can escalate to violence. Economic prosperity spreads throughout the galaxy as trade barriers fall and resources are shared more equitably. Cultural exchange flourishes as beings from different worlds learn to appreciate their differences while celebrating their common values. The generation born after the Clone Wars grows up in a galaxy fundamentally different from the one their parents knew. War is something they learn about in history classes rather than experience firsthand. The concept of an authoritarian empire ruling through fear and violence seems as foreign to them as the ancient Sith Empire seems to their elders. Luke and Leia, now in their 20s, have become symbols of this new generation. Their work, Luke as a Jedi archaeologist and explorer, Leia as a diplomat and political reformer, represents the kinds of pursuits that are possible when beings are free to follow their passions rather than merely survive conflicts. On Luke's 25th birthday, as he receives his promotion to Jedi Master in the same council chamber where his father was once denied that rank, Anakin reflects on the journey that brought them to this moment. The choice he made in Palpatine's office seems like a lifetime ago, but its consequences continue to ripple outward with each passing year. Master Skywalker, Yoda says after the ceremony, approaching Anakin with the careful steps of extreme old age. Proud of what you have accomplished I am. Changed the fate of the galaxy. You have. We all changed it, Anakin replies, looking around at the assembled Jedi Masters. You gave me the wisdom to see through Palpatine's deception. Obi-Wan gave me the training to act on that wisdom. Mace gave me the courage to make the hard choice. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Humble you have become, Yoda observes with a slight smile. But underestimate your role. You should not, in that moment, faced with the choice between fear and faith. Chose faith you did. Saved us all. That choice did. Standing beside his son as Luke takes his vows to serve the galaxy with wisdom and compassion, Anakin thinks about the parallel timeline that might have been. In that other reality, his fear for Padme's life led him to the dark side, transforming him into Darth Vader and enabling the rise of an empire that brought suffering to billions. His children grew up separated and hidden. Their father, a symbol of oppression rather than hope. But in this reality, love gave him the strength to see through deception and choose trust over fear. The Empire never rose. The Jedi Order evolved rather than being destroyed. And the galaxy found peace through cooperation rather than conquest. Billions of beings lived full lives in freedom, pursuing their dreams and building better futures for their children. The ripple effects of that single choice continue to spread across the galaxy with each passing year. New worlds join the Republic voluntarily, drawn by its commitment to democracy and justice. Former enemies become allies, as old grievances are addressed through dialogue rather than warfare. Children grow up in a galaxy where conflict is the exception rather than the rule, where different species and cultures work together rather than fighting for dominance. As Anakin watches his children begin their own journeys as adults, Luke exploring the mysteries of the Force and the galaxy beyond, Leia working to build even stronger foundations for galactic peace, he understands that his story is complete. The Chosen One's destiny was not to bring balance through destruction, but to choose the light when darkness seemed strongest and create the conditions for others to build a better future. The Sith are gone, not because they were destroyed in battle, but because the conditions that allowed them to thrive, fear, division, and the concentration of power in the hands of the few, have been systematically eliminated. The dark side still exists as part of the Force's natural balance, but it no longer dominates galactic politics or corrupts entire civilizations. Standing in the temple gardens with Padme as they watch their adult children continue the work of building a better galaxy, Anakin Skywalker reflects on the simple truth that changed everything. Love is stronger than fear, hope is stronger than despair, and the choice to trust in others rather than control them, is what separates the light from the darkness. The decades that follow continue to validate this choice. Luke's archaeological expeditions uncover more ancient Jedi sites, revealing training methods and philosophical insights that further enrich the Order's understanding of the Force. His discoveries on Ossus lead to the recovery of entire libraries of Jedi knowledge that had been thought lost forever. Working alongside civilian archaeologists and historians, he helps piece together a more complete picture of the galaxy's spiritual heritage. During one particularly significant expedition to the ancient Sith world of Korriban, Luke encounters the remnants of dark side energy that still linger in the planet's tombs and temples. But instead of being corrupted or tempted by this darkness, his training in emotional balance allows him to study these phenomena objectively, gaining insights into the nature of the dark side that help the Jedi better understand how to prevent future falls to darkness. The dark side isn't evil because it's strong, he explains to his students after returning from Korriban. It's dangerous because it offers easy answers to complex problems. It promises power without responsibility, control without understanding. But true strength comes from accepting that some problems don't have easy solutions, and that real power means knowing when not to use it. His research into ancient Force techniques leads to the development of new training methods that help Force users maintain their connection to the light, even when exposed to dark side influences. These techniques prove invaluable for Jedi who work in areas where dark side corruption remains a problem, such as former Sith strongholds or worlds affected by dark side artifacts. Leia's political career reaches its zenith when she is elected as the youngest Supreme Chancellor in Republic history at the age of 35. Her campaign focuses on continuing the reforms that began after Palpatine's defeat, with particular emphasis on expanding representation for species and worlds that had been marginalized under previous governments. Her inauguration speech, delivered to a packed Senate chamber and broadcast to billions of beings across the galaxy, encapsulates the values that have guided the Republic's transformation. We stand today not as conquerors or rulers, but as servants of the galactic community. Our strength comes not from our ability to impose our will on others, but from our willingness to listen, to learn, and to change when change is needed. The Republic belongs not to any single world or species, but to all beings who choose to participate in our shared democratic experiment. Her first major initiative as Chancellor involves establishing formal diplomatic relations with civilizations beyond the galaxy's traditional boundaries. The exploration programs initiated decades earlier have made contact with several extragalactic species, and Leia recognizes that the Republic's long-term security and prosperity depend on maintaining peaceful relationships with these new neighbors. The negotiations prove challenging, as these civilizations have their own complex histories and cultural assumptions that don't always align with Republic values. But Leia's Force-enhanced empathy and her years of diplomatic experience allow her to find common ground even in the most difficult discussions. One particularly significant agreement is reached with the Vong, a species from another galaxy whose biotechnology and warrior culture initially seem incompatible with Republic civilization. Through patient dialogue and cultural exchange programs, Leia helps establish a framework for peaceful coexistence that benefits both civilizations. Difference is not division, she explains during the treaty signing ceremony. We may use different technologies, worship different deities, and organize our societies in different ways, but we all share the same basic desires for security, prosperity, and the opportunity to raise our children in peace. These common values provide a foundation for friendship, even when our methods differ. The success of these extra-galactic diplomatic initiatives establishes the Republic as a major player in intergalactic politics, opening up new frontiers for trade, cultural exchange, and scientific collaboration. The knowledge gained from these contacts advances galactic civilization in ways that would have been impossible without the peace and stability created by Anakin's choice decades earlier. The environmental restoration projects that began in the immediate aftermath of the war continue to transform worlds throughout the galaxy. Coruscant, once a planet-wide city choking on its own pollution, undergoes a gradual transformation as green spaces are integrated into the urban landscape. The initiative, led by former Senator Mon Mothma working with Naboo environmental scientists, creates a model for sustainable urban development that is adopted on dozens of other heavily industrialized worlds. The project faces significant resistance from corporate interests who profit from the existing industrial infrastructure, but the new Republic's stronger environmental protections and the political will generated by the peace dividend make the transformation possible. Within 20 years, Coruscant features vast parks, rooftop gardens, and integrated ecosystems that support both urban civilization and natural wildlife. Similar projects on Corellia, Kuat, and other industrial worlds demonstrate that economic prosperity and environmental sustainability are not mutually exclusive. The green technology developed for these projects becomes a major export industry, helping other worlds achieve their own environmental goals while creating jobs and generating wealth for the Republic. The cultural exchanges that flourish during this period produce artistic and intellectual achievements that rival the greatest works of galactic history. The Coruscant Cultural Center, built on the site of Palpatine's former emergency bunkers, becomes a gathering place for artists, musicians, writers, and scholars from across the galaxy. The center's most famous resident is Cy Snootles, the former Max Rebo Band vocalist, who becomes a composer of serious musical works that blend traditional species-specific musical forms with innovative galactic fusion styles. Her symphonic work, Victory of Hope, written to commemorate the 20th anniversary of Palpatine's defeat, is performed simultaneously on over 1,000 worlds. Music speaks to something deeper than politics or economics. She explains during an interview about her work, it reaches the part of us that remembers we're all connected, all part of the same cosmic symphony. When beings from different worlds hear the same melody, they remember that they're not so different after all. The educational renaissance that accompanies these cultural developments produces the most educated generation in galactic history. The establishment of over 10,000 new universities, libraries, and research institutes creates opportunities for learning that extend far beyond the traditional core worlds to every corner of the galaxy. The University of Tatooine, built on the site of the former slave markets, becomes particularly renowned for its programs in sustainable agriculture and desert reclamation technology. Students from water-rich worlds come to learn from former moisture farmers about resource conservation, while Tatooine natives gain access to advanced scientific knowledge that helps them continue transforming their world. The medical advances of this period extend average lifespans and improve quality of life for beings throughout the galaxy. The collaboration between Jedi healers and conventional medical researchers produces treatments for conditions that had been considered incurable for millennia. Dr. Cornell Divini, a Mon Calamari researcher working with the Jedi Medical Corps, develops revolutionary treatments for Force-related psychological conditions, such as Force psychosis and dark side corruption. His work helps dozens of former Sith cultists and dark side adepts reintegrate into society, proving that even those who have touched the darkness can find their way back to the light. The dark side leaves scars, he explains during a medical conference on Camino, but scars can heal, and beings can change. The key is understanding that redemption is a process, not an event. It requires patience, support, and the recognition that everyone deserves a second chance. His therapeutic protocols become standard treatment throughout the galaxy, helping not just Force users, but anyone dealing with trauma, addiction, or other conditions that involve psychological damage. The integration of Force-based healing with conventional medicine revolutionizes mental health treatment and reduces suffering on a galactic scale. The space exploration initiatives that began in the immediate post-war period eventually lead to the discovery of entire new galaxies beyond the traditional boundaries of known space. These expeditions, now organized under the Permanent Galactic Exploration Service, make contact with civilizations that have developed along completely different evolutionary and technological paths. The most significant discovery comes when a joint Republic-Chiss expedition encounters the remains of an ancient galactic civilization that spanned multiple galaxies before mysteriously disappearing millions of years ago. The archaeological evidence suggests that this civilization achieved a level of technological and spiritual development that surpassed anything in recorded history. Luke leads the research team that studies these ancient sites, working alongside scholars from dozens of species to piece together the history of this lost civilization. Their discoveries suggest that the ancients achieved perfect balance between technology and nature, between individual freedom and collective responsibility, between the light and dark sides of the Force. They didn't conquer the galaxy. Luke reports to the Jedi Council after months of research. They didn't even govern it in any traditional sense. Instead, they seem to have achieved a state where every being in their civilization was free to pursue their own path while contributing to the common good. It's as if they solved all the problems we're still working on. The discovery provides inspiration and guidance for the Republic's continued development, suggesting that the current path of peaceful cooperation and democratic governance may indeed lead to even greater achievements in the distant future. As Anakin enters his 70s, he gradually transitions from active Jedi missions to a teaching and advisory role. His autobiography, Choosing Light, A Jedi's Journey from Slavery to Freedom, becomes one of the most widely read books in galactic history. The work provides not just a personal account of his life, but a meditation on the nature of choice, redemption, and the power of love to overcome fear. Young people throughout the galaxy read his account of the moment in Palpatine's office when he chose to trust in the Force rather than give in to fear. His description of that choice becomes a touchstone for anyone facing their own moments of moral crisis, providing guidance and inspiration for countless beings struggling with their own dark impulses. Everyone faces their own version of that moment, he writes in the book's conclusion. The details may be different, but the fundamental choice is always the same. Will we act from love or from fear? Will we trust in others or try to control them? Will we build bridges or walls? The choice we make in that moment doesn't just determine our own fate. It shapes the world around us and influences everyone we touch. The book's impact extends beyond entertainment or inspiration to become a practical guide for ethical decision-making that is studied in schools, used in diplomatic training, and referenced in legal proceedings throughout the galaxy. Padme, now in her 70s as well, continues her political work as an elder stateswoman and advisor to younger leaders. Her memoirs, Democracy's Promise, Building Peace After War, complement Anakin's autobiography by providing the political and historical context for the Republic's transformation. Together, their writings become essential texts for understanding how the galaxy achieved its current state of peace and prosperity. Universities throughout the Republic require both books for students studying political science, history, or conflict resolution. The legacy of their choice in Palpatine's office continues to influence galactic civilization long after they are gone. When Anakin passes away peacefully at the age of 83, surrounded by his family and students, his funeral is attended by representatives from every world in the Republic and many beyond. The ceremony, held in the rebuilt Jedi Temple on Coruscant, is broadcast live throughout the galaxy. Beings from hundreds of species and thousands of worlds pause in their daily activities to honor the man whose single choice decades earlier had made their peaceful lives possible. Luke delivers the primary eulogy, speaking not just about his father's achievements, but about the continuing responsibility that his choice has placed on future generations. My father showed us that one person, in one moment, can change the course of galactic history. But he also taught us that such moments don't happen in isolation. They grow out of relationships, training, and the accumulated wisdom of those who came before. His choice was possible because others had prepared him for it. And our continued peace is possible because we continue to make the same choice, day after day, to trust in love rather than fear. The memorial that is built in the temple gardens features a simple inscription that captures the essence of Anakin's legacy. Here stood a man who chose love over fear, and in that choice, the galaxy found peace. But perhaps the most fitting memorial to Anakin's choice is the galaxy itself, a civilization of billions of beings living in freedom, pursuing their dreams, raising their children in safety, and working together to build an even better future. The empire that might have oppressed them never arose. The wars that could have consumed them never began, and the darkness that threatened to engulf them was held back by the light of a single choice made in love. The galaxy found peace not through the triumph of one ideology over another, but through the recognition that every being deserves the freedom to choose their own path. The wars that might have consumed generations never began. The tyranny that could have lasted for decades never took hold. And the future remains bright with infinite possibilities for growth, discovery, and understanding. In the end, Anakin Skywalker's greatest victory was not defeating a Sith Lord or preventing a genocide. Though he did both of those things, his greatest victory was proving that love is indeed stronger than fear, that hope can overcome despair, and that a single moment of courage and wisdom can echo through the ages to create a better world for everyone. That's our theory. The Star Wars universe is a galaxy filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey to a galaxy far, far away, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. The economic recovery from the Clone Wars is aided by the discovery of vast resources that had been secretly controlled by Palpatine's network. Hidden mining operations, secret manufacturing facilities, and accumulated wealth that was meant to fund the Empire instead becomes available for reconstruction efforts. Worlds devastated by the war, receive massive aid packages funded by these recovered assets. Geonosis, the site of the war's first major battle, is transformed from a droid foundry into a center for peaceful technological development. Kamino, the clone homeworld, becomes a medical research facility focused on healing rather than creating soldiers. The transformation extends beyond politics and economics to culture and society. The end of the war and the exposure of Palpatine's deception lead to a galaxy-wide renaissance of art, science, and philosophy. Beings who had lived under the shadow of constant conflict for years suddenly find themselves free to pursue knowledge, creativity, and personal fulfillment. New universities are established on dozens of worlds, focusing on subjects that had been neglected during the military emergency. Archaeological expeditions explore ancient sites that had been too dangerous to visit during the war. Artists and musicians create works celebrating peace and unity rather than martial themes. The Jedi Order plays a crucial role in this cultural renaissance. No longer bound by rigid interpretations of emotional suppression, Jedi scholars are free to explore the deeper mysteries of the Force. New techniques are developed, ancient traditions are rediscovered, and the understanding of the Force's nature expands in ways that would have been impossible under the old dogma. Anakin, now recognized as one of the greatest Jedi in history, establishes a new training academy on Naboo that focuses on integration between Force users and non-Force sensitive beings. Students learn not just lightsaber combat and Force techniques, but also diplomacy, engineering, medicine, and other skills that allow them to serve the galaxy in multiple capacities. The Force flows through all living things. He teaches his students during a meditation session in the Academy's gardens. But that doesn't mean only Force users can touch the light. Some of the greatest heroes I've known had no Force sensitivity at all. They found their strength in courage, compassion, and the willingness to sacrifice for others. The Academy becomes a model for similar institutions throughout the galaxy, places where Force users and ordinary beings work together to solve problems and advance knowledge. The artificial separation between Jedi and the rest of society, which had contributed to the Order's isolation and eventual near-destruction, is replaced by integration and cooperation. Years pass, and the galaxy settles into a period of peace and prosperity. Unlike anything seen in generations, the New Republic government proves stable and effective, addressing conflicts through diplomacy rather than warfare. The reformed Jedi Order serves as guardians and advisors rather than generals and soldiers. The wounds left by decades of manipulation and war slowly heal, but perhaps the most significant change is in the Force itself. The oppressive darkness that had clouded the galaxy during Palpatine's reign lifts, allowing the light side to flow more freely than it has in centuries. Jedi report clearer visions, stronger connections to the living Force, and a sense of balance that had been missing for generations. Luke and Leia grow into young adults in this environment of peace and hope. Luke becomes a Jedi Knight at the age of 20, but his path differs significantly from traditional Jedi training. He spends as much time studying engineering and pilot training as he does practicing with a lightsaber, preparing himself to serve the galaxy in whatever capacity is needed. Leia follows her mother into politics, becoming one of the youngest senators in Republic history at the age of 25. Her Force sensitivity enhances her natural diplomatic skills, allowing her to sense the true motivations of those she negotiates with and find common ground. Even in the most contentious disputes, The twins work together on various missions, combining Luke's Jedi abilities with Leia's political acumen to resolve conflicts throughout the galaxy. They become symbols of the new era, proof that Force users and political leaders can work together for the common good rather than pursuing separate agendas. On Luke's 25th birthday, as he receives his promotion to Jedi Master, Anakin reflects on the path that brought them to this moment. Standing in the same council chamber where he was once denied the rank of Master himself, he watches his son take vows to protect and serve the galaxy with wisdom and compassion. Master Skywalker, Yoda says after the ceremony, approaching Anakin with the careful steps of extreme old age. Proud of what you have accomplished, I am. Changed the fate of the galaxy, you have. We all changed it, Anakin replies, looking around at the assembled Jedi Masters. You gave me the wisdom to see through Palpatine's deception. Obi-Wan gave me the training to act on that wisdom. Mace gave me the courage to make the hard choice. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Humble you have become, Yoda observes with a slight smile. But underestimate your role. You should not. In that moment, faced with the choice between fear and faith, chose faith you did. Saved us all. That choice did. As Anakin looks out at the skyline of Coruscant, now free from the oppressive atmosphere that marked Palpatine's reign, he thinks about the path not taken. In another timeline, another reality, his fear for Padmé's life led him to the dark side. He became Darth Vader, enforcer of an empire that brought suffering to billions. His children were separated and hidden, growing up without their father, fighting a rebellion against the very tyranny he helped create. But in this reality, his love for Padmé gave him the strength to see through the deception. He chose trust over fear, wisdom over power, and in doing so, he saved not just his own soul, but the entire galaxy. The Empire never rose, the Death Star was never built, and billions of beings lived full lives in freedom, rather than dying under tyrannical rule. The ripple effects of that single choice continue to spread across the galaxy with each passing year. New worlds join the Republic voluntarily, drawn by its commitment to democracy and justice. Former enemies become allies as old grievances are addressed through dialogue rather than warfare. Children grow up in a galaxy where conflict is the exception rather than the rule. Standing next to his wife as they watch their children train the next generation of Jedi, Anakin Skywalker reflects on the simple truth that changed everything. Love is stronger than fear. Hope is stronger than despair. And the choice to trust in others rather than control them is what separates the light from the darkness. The Chosen One fulfilled his destiny not by destroying the Sith through violence, but by choosing the light when the darkness seemed strongest. In that moment of truth, faced with the ultimate test of his character, Anakin Skywalker proved that the greatest power in the galaxy is not the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to know when destruction is necessary and when it is not. And so, the galaxy found peace, not through conquest or control, but through the simple recognition that every being deserves the freedom to choose their own path. The empire that might have been never rose, the wars that could have consumed generations never began, and the darkness that threatened to swallow the galaxy was banished by the light of a single choice made in love rather than fear. That's our theory. The Star Wars universe is a galaxy filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey to a galaxy far, far away, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.